Lack of mobility is one of the biggest impediments to really advancing in your core training. For example, a movement like in LSit, especially when we're talking about doing it from an on-hand position or a dip bar, if we don't have enough hamstring flexibility, all right, we can't get there without having to bend the knees and or feeling lower back pain. So this is a great kind of entry-level drill for this, especially for extended time under tension. It's something you can also work with watching TV at night. The key is keeping the legs completely straight and squeezing the quads. And one thing you'll notice on this too, that middle quad, it's both a knee extensor and a hip flexor. So it's very active on this exercise. It can often cramp. What that tells you is this guy needs some love with some foam rolling of that middle quad, also that quad hip flexor / couch stretch, or if you will, the bottom of the Bulgarian split squat stretch that we worked before. So what you'll do here is you'll kind of drive your arms underground, pack the shoulders down, exhale up, lifting that leg as high as you can and holding for 1 or 2 seconds. You're gonna feel obviously in the hip flexors, the psoas, high hip flexor, but also especially that mid quad. Inhale it down. Now, what you'll notice if you're really tight is your trunk is gonna wanna kick back as you lift. So you can start with a slight recline in the trunk, but you're gonna try to work to get as upright as you can, like you would at the top of a sit-up or seated overhead press, so that we're getting the hamstring mobility and the maximum hip flexor activation while smoking the anterior thighs. So now, once you get that extra stability and it feels good, you're warmed into it, no cramping going on, you can try doing a prayer. And that now it's all, you gotta really drive this leg down and lift without letting yourself tip back. And this is my tighter side, so it makes me wanna kick back a little bit. I just have to fight to keep upright as I do it. And again, I can spend more time isometrically trying to make sure this, I don't toe out and I can get that toe back to the shin as I lift that leg. So you can modify by working to this, and again, just spend more time in that tight weak side, identify it, and work it more on off days. Alternating LSit from top, hip flexors, not only high hip flexors, the psoas above the hip level here that attach to the lumbar spine, but also that mid quad muscle. We did in a previous month here, right? We went from the bottom, just kind of working on range of motion and building up. And by the way, that's what you can back off or regress to if you get too fatigued in this extended set. But now to progress it, and you can go fingertip assistance here, again, about trying to create that 45-degree angle upper lower. But we get here, we lock in, inhale down, tap, exhale back up, and keep switching sides. So now it's much harder because one leg isn't down, one leg is always up. So it's a much harder version of the same exercise. And we start here, again, focus on range of motion. Progress to doing the balance version of that. Just balancing on those sit bones. I can always back off here, and I can always back off to coming back from the bottom. Again, this is also just a great drill. You're sitting watching TV. You want to just kind of stretch things, open things up, and light up those abs. You can do it there too. But this is part of our hip flexor training progression. Keep working those hip flexors, and we will keep building full body fitness. All right, baby, this is a little bit of a setup, but it's worth it. You don't have to use the ball, but you need a high enough box bench so you get into this kind of L-sit position with the legs straight. So this is gonna bias us in a way in which we can get the positioning with the lower body, but we don't have to actually use our hip flexors to keep us here, but we're working on the mobility aspect, but we're really trying to work on your scapula here, the depression component, pushing down that low trap and also posterior shoulder. So I got my wedgies ready to extend the range of motion. I got a deep shrug. I'm gonna come through, hold for a count or two, lower to dead stop. Get a good stretch here, but we're dead stop. So we're building raw strength from the bottom here. Okay, now I'm elevating the fingers to increase the stretch at the wrist. You could go like this if you have wrist issues, but still want to get the extended motion, and you can elevate the heel of the hand to make it easier. Get up as high as you can. So I could stop there, or I could go right there, all right? If you do it right, you get insane, not only the whole scapular girdle rib cage area here, but you get insane contraction in your abdominals. So really push all the way through for it. And again, the elevation aspect here, eventually, you know, the goal is, I don't even know if I can do it now. Should I do it? Should I risk destroying this whole video right now? But the goal is we be able to do this. okay? But now it's tough, right? But this gives us kind of a way to bridge the gap, a nice little stepping stone exercise, and it also won't require such insane contractions here. Just doing that, by the way, just like I just showed, it cramps up the quads a little bit because of the intensity. So, but we'll get there. This is how we will get there progressively. Dead stop, alternating leg, LSit. Now, elevating the heel of the hand will make this easier. Elevating the fingers will make it harder, more mobility. But I want you to find a way to elevate it because I need to allow you to get the range of motion off the ground. Also, take those shoulders through a full range of motion. So what we're trying to do here is one leg will be up. You're trying to actively raise this leg as high as you can and hold it there. This leg will stay down to unload you and give you a little more stability. But here's what it looks like. So I start here, exhale up, squeeze out those abs. Inhale down, switch sides, come back down. I'm just switching legs. And keep this leg up the whole way. Butt sets, set the other foot, switch. And the big focus here too is it's actually easier the further the legs are away from me. Try to, over time, get your hips more underneath your shoulders. And that's really that compression strength that we're trying to work for, so you can do this with both feet in the air. So again, just so you can see how much more challenging it is here to even set up. Insane core contraction, chest, shoulder, arm pump, and again, great hip flexion work as well. So take on the challenge, 1 rep at a time. Treat this as a series of perfect single reps, switching legs each rep. Mobility, stability, strength, all in one. Dead stop, LSit. Now, I got my slant boards ready because I do want to allow us to extend the range of motion off the floor, so it's just easier. You actually get a better feel for actually lifting your body off the ground. The fingers elevated option is the most challenging, and the heel of hand elevated option will be the easiest. I'll show it that way because I've been doing enough today as it is. But this is tough stuff, guys, okay? This is a drill that requires a full body strength and tensioning, and it'll just take some time. I'll show modification coming up. You could also, by the way, take a pair of dumbbells and put them on the ground like this to extend the range of motion. Also, that neutral wrist position tends to feel easier as well. So here's all we're doing here. The legs are together. I'm gonna focus on like the starting position here. You almost wanna kind of start from a shrug with the arms straight. Take a big inhale. Inhale it down. And I'm just going like this. I hold for a couple seconds. I rest for a couple seconds. And I come down, okay? So this is very, very tough, all right? You might not be able to get off the ground, and that's why I'm gonna show the modification here off of a high box or step. Join me over here. So this just allows you, especially if there are flexibility issues and keeping the legs straight. And again, remember, sometimes what our strengths, right? Like it's a strength for me to have big, long, strong legs athletically, but when it comes to doing the LSit, long lever, big weight, super challenging on my core muscles. So it's a disadvantage when it comes to the LSit. We all have our individual strengths and weaknesses, okay? So what I'm gonna do here is get locked like this. It allows my legs to come a little bit lower, and even if I can't get them high enough, at least they can get off the ground. So big inhale. They're a little bit lower, right? But that's fine, you're still working those muscles. Now, the easiest option would just to be bend them at 90 degrees, lift, and do kind of more of a tucked body LSit. So that's the modification option is there as well. My recommendation, start on the floor. If you're finding like I can't get off the ground at all, come right to the box. And then maybe over time, maybe it's half the set is on the ground, come in here, work this a lot on off days because you can do it for higher reps and longer work periods. That'll feed the strength on the ground. But awesome exercise we've been working for all year. This is elite calisthenics drills. Now, as much as I like to pat myself on the back for doing it on the floor like that, true gymnasts, they can get their legs up like this. Like mine were about here. They're getting them up like there. So I have a long way to go to get there, but that's part of the journey. All right, now they're also like 160 pounds, 130 pounds. Uncle Baby's a big boy. All right, he eats pizza. All right, so I do the best I can, and so will you in this workout. So take on the challenge. Extend a range of motion, couch or quad hip flexor stretch. Now I can use a big medicine ball, I can use a box or bench. I can also just get tucked close to a wall and put the foot up against the wall like that as well. So lots of options. You can also do it, as it's called, in a couch. This is the kind of upper body resting portion of the couch. This is the actual place you would sit with your knee on it, and I can even take a pillow or pad or put the leg on the seat as well. But anyway, you can figure it out, you'll make it work. What I'm doing here is really focusing on contracting my abdomen, and then I'm gonna just do a lot of different motions here, trying to work on squeezing the glute, opening up the hip and the quad. So if you suffer from back pain or knee pain, this is a money drill, and this is also gonna help us get more hip flexion, ultimately getting the knee closer to the chest. And the more we get motion through the hip, the more glute contraction we can get as well. So I can work here, I can work on turning away, get a little upper back rotation. I can work on coming off to the side, really get into the high hip flexor, psoas and oblique section here. I can come forward. By elevating the lead leg, I'm getting more flexion in this leg. If I elevate the heel itself, I can work on getting my knee more forward, mobilizing the ankle, the foot, the toes, coming in and out like that, getting some good hip rotation. I can open up here, come back, add some motion through the scapula as well, add twists and turns both ways. You've got the ability to explore this. And again, don't just use this as a warm-up to this workout. Use this as kind of an ongoing EHO, every hour on the hour mobility, or daily recovery drill as well. And again, just even try to come all the way back and just try to glute yourself through and stretch and open up this area. Peel it open. You'll have the ability then to do more killer core variations without lower back pain. Elevate the toes. That's gonna stretch the calf, ankle, and Achilles. And I want you to also try to create a slight forward lean as if sprinting, okay? So this is key. It's gonna load the whole system up. What we're gonna then do from there with self-assistance on the wall, a pair of parallel bars, chairs, however you set up for this within a power rack, I'm going to fully actually we'll do a first hinge, inhale it back and just kind of work on pumping that heel straight up to the sky, open it up, all right? Stretch that whole side here. Now we're gonna come into full flexion of this leg and extension of the trail leg, and I want you to pulse, exhale up, inhale down, and then after some pulses, pump, same way. And then go right again. So total single leg hip sequence here. Get back, stretch it out, pull through, strengthen the hip flexors there, and then the other hip flexor too, right in the middle. That quad is very active with the leg straight, also challenging our mobility to the max. This is an extreme joint ankle mobility exercise, but make no mistake, it's also very important for strengthening the hip flexors and the core. This will help with sprinting, running in general, but sprinting in particular because of the extreme joint angles. It's also gonna help us get really good at our, these guys. Get higher up there. Also, legs straight as well. You know what's coming. Pistol, contract, relax. Again, another genius movement from a genius trainer, if I might say so myself. But again, all we're doing here is we're just focusing on areas of weakness, spending time strengthening those weaknesses. So we elevate the toes of the trail leg, get more stretch at the calf, ankle, Achilles. We're trying to really get tall up top, squeeze this back glute to open up this hip flexor. And you modify this by going with any sort of lower structure. I can go aerobic step or chair, and you can start lower, but ideally we want to have ourselves in a situation where we're contracting, relaxing above and below knee above hip level, because this is where your psoas get active, right here. Also, critical muscle, your middle quad, rectus femoris, another hip flexor, often tight, and it can cramp up on you because this is a high tension exercise. But you want to do pistols L-sits, hanging leg raises with your legs straight. This is a really great drill for that. So I'm using some assistance from the wall or pole with one hand, and all I'm doing is, this is the relaxed portion. The leg is straight, squeeze this quad, exhale up, hold for at least a second or two, 3 to 5 seconds ideally, inhale it down. And I'm doing this for time. So it's an active, aggressive stretching mobility drill. Inhale down, let it rest. This is also allowing you to not cramp up, because if we're holding it for too long, you will cramp up on this, especially if you're new to the exercise. So again, resting it, squeezing it on the exhale, full exhale, inhale it back down and rest. And we'll do both sides, obviously. But again, progress to a higher bar or platform to rest the leg on, and just becomes even better by using the slant board. But this will really clean up your form and technique. And a lot of people think, oh, I don't have the strength to do this exercise. Actually, some of you are strong enough, you're just not mobile enough. And that's what this drill is all about. Ooh, Uncle Baby out here swiveling them hips for the pelvic pendulums. When in doubt, alliteration is the key to success. Here's what we're doing. Elevate the toes, better stretch for the calves, the ankles, the Achilles. Offhand touch on a pole, wall, whatever you can have access to. And I want this leg to be able to swing through. This leg stays straight. The goal of this hand that's assisting is to support us and stabilize us and keep the hips and shoulders square throughout the exercise. All I'm gonna do is hinge back, and I'm actually gonna try to keep this leg as straight as possible. And right here, wow, massive stretch of the whole posterior thigh into that hip capsule. Come all the way through, exhale it up, and try to keep both legs as straight as possible and stay upright here. Inhale down, exhale up, and then start slow, correct at any point you need to at various positions, and then eventually we can actually make it more dynamic and ballistic. And I'm always mindful of my low back position, all right? This is actually, you might actually feel some soreness the next day in your muscles because of it's like ballistic stretching. But again, start slow, ramp up the speed over the course of the set, and just be mindful. Why I put my hand here is so that I can tell I'm never flexing or overly extending my low back. It's always nice and neutral. A slight little divot in the back of the hand helps me with that. This will also stretch my shoulder and chest, so it actually helps with posture as well. So this is just such a beautiful drill. This will help you on, what's the shape, right? Well, hanging leg raises, L-sits, and also our pistol training. So this is a great feeder exercise to all that. I also love it pre-walk, run, or anytime you've been sitting for a while and you want to adjust those hips. Toes elevated crane. No, not that crane, different crane. I'm thinking of the cranes that actually build buildings and structures. Now we're elevating the toes, and you could say, oh, we already did this. No, you didn't do it. Okay, this is different. Now, when we did the pelvic pendulum, all right, that is more dynamic, and there's not as much strength required in these muscles, the hip flexors and the quads, to keep that leg up because we're actually using momentum to swing it through. In this case, all we're gonna do is kind of a slight kick back through the heel. I want you to activate this glute a little bit, slightly hinge, but not too much, and then slowly, keeping that leg straight, lift it as high as you can. Wow, it doesn't go as high. Why? Because dynamically, that's momentum. This is pure muscle strength. And especially when we're doing things like the L-sit, the hanging leg raise, you might be stronger on one side versus the other, and that might actually adjust and affect your positioning. So again, we're fixing and balancing between sides. Inhale it back, activate that glute in a nice little kick. Slow, smooth exhale up, and just try to really finish through that hip and get tall. And every rep, just try to get a little bit higher. The goal is to get that foot above hip level long term. Think like Jean-Claude Van Damme, all the way up there. It's possible, especially with time, but this is also even more challenging of a stretch because here, much harder to get at that ankle and the calf, ankle, Achilles. This will also fortify the Achilles in a big way as well. So again, pistols, L-sits, and hanging leg raises. This drill is so good for that. This also really get the abs, hip flexors going, and those muscles tend to look good